and most recently started the Restore Freedom Michigan ballot initiative to amend our state constitution. Please welcome Attorney Katherine Henry. I guess I'm really tall for this setup here. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful day and what a wonderful afternoon. It's so nice to see you all today. Woo, and this is a way better scenario than the other rallies I've spoken at in the last few months where we've been, 40, 50 degrees and a ton of rain and all that stuff. So this is a much better scenario. All right, guys, so as she said, I am an attorney, a mediator, restorative justice facilitator, but most recently I am the founder of the Restore Freedom Initiative. For anybody who doesn't know what the Restore Freedom Initiative is, it's a petition to amend our state constitution. It's not a general revision that's going to open up the whole constitution for changes. It is amending specific pieces of our state constitution that will be put on the ballot for November 3rd this year, where you will be able to vote yes or no on the amendment. You can follow along with me today if you want to look at restorefreedommi.com. You can also contact our team at restorefreedommi@gmail.com. We have well over 1,500 petition circulators all across the state. It is amazing to see the team of people that we have. We have nearing 500 stationary signing hubs, businesses, homes all across the state where people can go and sign at any time during those business hours. We've had hundreds of freedom rallies and signing events all across our state, and we are continuing to do so. In fact, I'll be in Detroit tomorrow. I'm going to be in Traverse City and somewhere by Muskegon, I think, on Saturday. I can't even tell you, but where I will be, you can see on restorefreedommi.com in our list of events, and I would love to see you guys there. At this point, our team is actually going through the signatures we've collected thus far, so we could try to make sure we're keeping up on all those signature pages coming in, the thousands and thousands of signatures we get every single day. I can tell you that as of 5 days ago, we already had signatures in 80 of the 83 Michigan counties. So, to those of you who don't necessarily know what this petition does, first of all, it clarifies and strengthens our due process rights. We know we have those rights, but what does it really mean to say you have due process rights? Well, what it means with this petition, when this amendment gets put into our state constitution, it means that the government will have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, not just in criminal cases, in any case, if they want to take away your life, your liberty, or your property, the government will have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it is necessary because you are depriving somebody else of their life, liberty, or property. And if the government doesn't meet that burden, they do not get to deprive you of your life, liberty, or property. We also spell out and clarify the separation of powers. As we've seen, there's been problems where we have one branch that likes to take away the powers of another branch and create laws when they're only supposed to enforce them. We have portions in here that clarify, this is not a new thing, this is something our government and the people of our state should already know, but we're going to make it exceedingly clear for them that emergencies do not diminish our rights, nor do they increase government power, ever. We also clarify how to interpret state law in a way that probably was always just boring and something that most people ignored, except for if you heard it on an episode of Law & Order. But now we hear it every day on the news. Whether you can follow a 1945 act or whether you have to pay attention to a 1976 act on the same topic. The answer is yes, you do. You can't cherry pick laws. If it doesn't work for us, it shouldn't work for the governor. So we clarify that that's how it works, and we also clarify something that already exists, which is that unconstitutional laws and unconstitutional government actions are void on their face. It's as though they don't even exist. So despite what our legislature has told us when they filed this lawsuit against the governor, that we have to wait for the courts to tell us that it's okay to exercise our rights, in the meantime, we have to keep following these illegal and unconstitutional executive orders. No, we don't. They're unconstitutional on their face. They have no force and effect of law whatsoever. Oh, and I lost my notes already. So something that we spell out in here is that a constitution's most basic functions are, first of all, to create the form and structure of government, but also to define and limit the powers of government and to provide for the protection of rights and liberties of the people. And any law or governmental action that is repugnant to the supreme law of the land, which is our Constitution, is void on its face and is as inoperative as though it had never been passed. And this is because the people and not the government possess the absolute sovereignty. We streamline and clarify the roles and functions of our courts, and we require concrete methods of government transparency, accessibility, and accountability. We need to know what the government is doing and why they're doing it at all levels. I don't care if it's a school board meeting, I don't care if it's the governor, everyone in between. This is a government by the people. We have the sovereign power. We can't hold them accountable if there's no true transparency, if there's no proper accessibility for us to get to them. And if you don't have those two things, you don't have accountability, and the whole system, the Republican form of government that we're guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, does not exist without that. So we ramp up that government transparency, accessibility, accountability. Those things do not belong in statutes like they currently are. They belong in the Constitution because it goes to the fundamental aspect of how we exercise that sovereign power here. So we remove FOIA loopholes and Open Meetings Act loopholes. We mandate roll call votes and reporting of those votes in public for any public body whatsoever. No hiding behind a voice vote anymore. If you're not willing to put your name behind your vote, you shouldn't be making that vote. We place the burden on the government to disclose the information, not on the public to request it. Now, obviously, there's indefinite amounts of information that are out there, so the government's not going to put everything out there, but all those decisions that are happening on a regular basis at public meetings, we need to know that information before we go into those meetings, and we need to know the final decisions when we come out of those meetings. And it's the government's job to post that, not our job to request it and pay for it. So we need to get back to restoring our Republican form of government. And like I said, it's guaranteed to us in the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4. What this means and how we're going to do that is to remove the power of unelected commissions that perform functions that properly belong to the legislature or the executive branch or judicial branch, those that we vote for, those that we have that connection to. Any unelected commissioner or bureaucrat should not be making decisions that affect our lives in any way, shape, or form. We also clarify that executive orders have no effect on regulating the people. In fact, governmental internal operating procedures, administrative rules and regulations, like DHS, executive orders, and any other similar regulations have no regulatory effect upon the people, and that language will go right into our state constitution. We will have no more unelected officials or commissions even drafting our laws. So currently right now, I don't know if you knew this, I didn't really recognize this before, but I always elected our legislators thinking that they were talking with the people, doing the research, investigating things in their areas, in their districts, and then as a legislator, they were drafting appropriate laws to either repeal a regulation or add one as appropriate, and then they were voting on that. I don't know about you, but I just recently found out that they don't do that at all. Our state constitution, as it's currently written, says that we have a legislative council of attorneys that get paid to do the research, to draft the laws and then to give the legislators advice on how to vote. Well, that's why a lot of our legislators don't even read the bills before they vote on them. I could tell you they didn't read Senate Bill 858 on April 30th when they voted it. And guess what? They voted on it, both the House and the Senate as amended, and among many other things, it required masks with no medical exemptions. Most of them didn't even know that. That's a sad day. That's not one legislator, that is most of them. We need to get back to a point where the people drafting the laws are the people that we elect to do that job. This is not a government of attorneys. I earned my law degree, but you shouldn't have to have a law degree just to participate in our government. That's not the system of government that we have. I'm going to wait a second. Administrative agencies are no longer going to be allowed to create rules and regulations for the people. They can create rules and regulations for themselves. But Section 28 of our state constitution says now, under Article 6, it'll be amended to say that administrative action will now have no effect on individuals and that no administrative officer, it's a great point, they're all celebrating for us. Okay, I think we're good now. No administrative officer or agency may act to affect the private rights or private licenses of individuals. Enough of this. Enough of this situation where Carl, the barber, has to be threatened not only with criminal action, but with regulatory action from an agency that's full of a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. Enough is enough. So, we also have a section in here that specifies that from now on, any bill that will restrict the people and not just the government can restrict themselves all they want, but any bill that's going to restrict our freedoms will only be enacted if it has passed both houses of the legislature by a 2/3 vote or has been approved by a 2/3 majority of the electors. If it's not good enough to pass a supermajority vote, it shouldn't be in place to regulate the 10 million people in this state. And any current law that's restricting us, the people, and not just the government, that was enacted in this manner shall be enforceable. It will remain enforceable. But if it wasn't enacted that way, guess what? It's not going to be enforceable anymore. So that brings me to Section 51. Section 51 is one that our governor has so lovingly referred to in, I believe, every single one of her emergency power executive orders this year. The public health and general welfare. So it currently reads that the legislature shall pass suitable laws for the protection and promotion of the public health. They're told to pass laws to tell us how to protect our own health. We're taking that sentence out. And it will say that any law made to promote the public health must be in accordance with all state and federal constitutional provisions. And that every person, whether you're young or old, male or female, born or preborn, every person has the right to their own bodily integrity. And no public body or private business can impose a requirement upon customers or employees that is likely to impair the individual health or safety of anyone. So when you have masks that you're required to wear to be in a gym, for example, I think common sense tells us that's not healthy at all. That would impair, that is likely to impair the health or safety of any particular individual who does that. Let's bring common sense and actual science and data back into things here. So that brings me to a couple of interesting things that have come out of the Michigan Supreme Court recently. So although they're kind of punting a little bit and they're not taking on these cases directly, and even despite what people have said about the order that came out for Carl's case, it only has like 4 sentences. It doesn't do all the things that some of the media have proclaimed that it does. But there are some highlights from the Supreme Court's orders that came out on June 4th and June 5th. So it's interesting that Justice Clement, in her opinion in the June 4th order, she says, until a vaccine for COVID-19 is invented, our society will be living with the risk of spreading this disease and the argued necessity of emergency measures to mitigate that spread. Where's the science and data on that? And where in the Constitution does it say that we get to live based off fear and have the government tell us that we need to have this stuff injected into our bodies? Don't even get me started on vaccine manufacturers' inserts, because I got a whole lot more on that topic. But then we have Justice Markman, who does see it for what it actually is. One of the things he said when he agreed that the Michigan Supreme Court should take the case and allow the legislature's lawsuit to jump over the Court of Appeals and be handled immediately by the Michigan Supreme Court, this is what he said on that topic. This is an issue of the greatest practical importance to the more than 10 million people of this state. The validity of the executive orders declaring a state of emergency and thereby enabling a single public official to restrict and regulate travel, assembly, business operations, educational opportunities, freedoms and civil liberties, and other ordinary aspects of the daily lives of these people, including matters of crime and punishment and public safety. To put it even more specifically, the present applications to jump over the Court of Appeals place into question the entirety of the processes and procedures by which the executive orders that have defined nearly every minute and nearly every aspect of the lives of we the people of Michigan for more than the past 2 months were fashioned into law. He seems to get it. This is all about our liberties. None of this is okay. But he's not the only one. Justice Zara also knows this. And Justice Zara says, this case presents palpable constitutional questions that are of compelling interest to every resident, business, and employer in Michigan. The instant matter, the lawsuit the legislature has against the governor, is arguably the most significant constitutional question presented to this court in the last 50 years. He continues by saying that each resident's personal liberty is at stake. That's what we've been fighting all along, but this whole COVID-19 thing brings it right into the forefront, and we're going to be able to use this information to bring it into the homes of every person across the state of Michigan so they can understand exactly what we've been fighting for. Justice Viviano also shares with us the same concept here, that there's no issue of greater public interest or importance than the resolution of whether the governor was within her constitutional authority to deprive the 10 million plus residents and the thousands of business owners of Michigan of their personal freedom and economic liberty. So we must pay attention to these things, as well as what Justice Viviano said in Carl's case, which is that it is incumbent on the courts to ensure decisions are made according to the rule of law, not hysteria. And that courts decide legal questions that arise in the cases that come before them according to the rule of law, and that they hope that this great principle, essential to any free society, including ours, will not itself become yet another casualty of COVID-19. Freedom, liberty, that's what this is all about. So, in other words, nothing can be required upon us to conceal our identities or stop us from breathing fresh air or requiring us to have COVID-19 vaccines. So don't let the government control your health any longer. Sign our Restore Freedom petition to put freedom on the ballot in November. Thank you, everyone.